$0. Okay, let that sink in for a second. That is exactly how much creators have historically made on the secondary market for over 500 years. I mean, imagine spending months pouring your soul into a masterpiece, selling it just to pay your rent, and then watching it resell decades later for millions of dollars while you see absolutely nothing.
So that brings us to a massive question. How do we actually fix a 500-year-old problem? That's the central mystery we're unraveling today. We're going to look at how a new wave of technology attempted to solve the oldest, most deeply entrenched injustice in the art and music worlds, and honestly, what happened when human nature and game theory pushed back.
In this explainer, we're completely demystifying the mechanics, the math, and the ultimate survival of creator royalties. We're drawing entirely from the brilliant insights compiled in the Ward Library source text, so we're stripping away all the hype and the jargon to look purely at the system design.
We'll follow the money through 5 quick stops: the 500-year resale problem, how NFT royalties actually work, the marketplace royalty wars, getting paid today, and finally, the future beyond art.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1. The 500-year resale problem, and why artists basically starved before NFTs.
Since 1520, when Michelangelo sold his commission for the Sistine Chapel, the golden rule has been this: creators get paid on the first sale only. The Pope paid him exactly once. Fast forward, and over the next 500 years, tourists have paid the Vatican an estimated $500 million to see it, but Michelangelo's cut of that secondary revenue? Zero. And it wasn't just Renaissance painters. David Bowie faced the exact same $0 reality with used record sales. Just think about the traditional gallery math. You sell a piece of art for $1,000. The gallery takes 50% right off the top. Framing and shipping eat another $200. You walk away with $300. Years later, a collector resells that exact same piece at Sotheby's for $100,000. You get nothing. The collector only needs one sale to make $99,000 in profit, but you'd need to sell 100 original pieces just to make a living wage. And the music math? It's just as stark. 1 million Spotify streams generates about $3,000 total. After the label takes 85% and the distributor takes 10%, the artist gets $150. If a fan resells a rare vinyl of that album on eBay for $200, the artist, again, sees nothing. Before Web3, there was simply no tracking, no global database, and zero legal enforcement for secondary pay.
Which leads us to Section 2. How NFT royalties actually work to fix this, using smart contracts, standards, and splits.
In 2021, if an artist's work resold for 100 Ethereum, a mechanism automatically routed 10 Ethereum back to them. No lawyers, no invoices. The code just did it. And this runs on something called ERC 2981. Think of the smart contract standard like a giant universal vending machine. See, back in the early days of 2020, every marketplace handled royalties totally differently, and it was complete chaos. But by 2021, ERC 2981 was introduced as a global standard. It's a simple piece of code that any marketplace can read, telling them exactly what percentage to calculate and which wallet to pay every single time a buy button is clicked. To see this magic in action, imagine a secondary sale happens on a platform like OpenSea for 1 Ethereum. Let's say that's around $3,000. Bam! Instantly, the contract goes to work. It routes 92.5% to the seller, it skims a 2.5% marketplace fee, and it sends a 5% royalty directly to the creator. This literally happens in seconds. It completely solved the 500-year problem of tracking and enforcing secondary sales without a single piece of paperwork. And what's really incredible is how the ecosystem built on top of that. Tools like 0x Splits can take that 5% creator royalty and automatically slice it up among an entire team. Say you release a music NFT. The contract can instantly send 40% to the artist, 30% to the producer, 20% to the writer, and 10% to a charity. Even if the band breaks up, the code never, ever stops paying the right people. Pair that with something called lazy minting, where the artist pays 0 gas fees until the very first sale happens, and suddenly you have a system where creators can launch with literally 0 upfront financial risk. But then things got messy. Let's move into Section 3, the Marketplace Royalty Wars, Blur versus OpenSea 0%, and why the whole thing kind of broke.
For 4 years, from 2017 to 2021, the space operated on a gentleman's agreement. All the major marketplaces simply chose to play nice and honor the 5 to 10% royalties. Because technically, on the blockchain, the transfer of the token and the transfer of the funds are separate, meaning a marketplace could just ignore the royalty call if they wanted to. Well, in 2022, a new marketplace called Blur launched, and they brought a hyper-aggressive strategy, 0% marketplace fees and 0% optional royalties. They actually incentivized traders to skip paying the creator. It was a bloodbath.
By February 2023, the incumbent giant OpenSea was bleeding so much volume to Blur that they formally surrendered, making royalties optional on their platform too.
Now, we have to look at this impartially because it is a textbook example of game theory. On one side, you have the creators. They desperately needed that 5% passive income to survive. I mean, that was the whole promise of the ecosystem. But on the other side, the traders, the people actually providing liquidity to the market, faced absolutely brutal math. If a trader buys an asset for 1 Ethereum and wants to flip it for 1.05 to help establish a market floor, a 5% creator royalty instantly wipes out 100% of their profit margin. To a trader, mandatory royalties meant no liquidity, and no liquidity meant the market floor dies anyway.
The collateral damage of this zero-sum war was staggering. To put it into perspective, in 2022, creator fees totaled $1.1 billion. In 2023, after that shift to 0% optional royalties, that number absolutely plummeted to just $64 million. That is a 95% drop. Artists who are comfortably making $8,000 a month in passive income suddenly saw their checks drop to $200. The social contract completely broke down. The space went from a thriving creator economy straight into a trader casino.
So, where does that leave us? Section 4. Getting paid today. Let's look at enforced royalties in the new models stepping up to the plate.
Because creators didn't just give up, they fought back with something called enforced royalties. Using tools from platforms like Manifold, artists began deploying their own custom contracts with a very specific, very aggressive rule built in. It's a simple step-by-step. Step 1, the contract initiates a sale. Step 2, the code checks the royalty policy of the marketplace trying to make the trade. Step 3, if that marketplace is flagged as a 0% zone, like Blur, the contract literally blocks the transfer entirely. It just says no. Artists like Xcopy and Tyler Hobbs deliberately chose to sacrifice some of their market liquidity just to enforce their right to be paid.
But all this friction caused a massive wider shift that we're seeing right now. Creators are moving away from relying strictly on secondary sales and pivoting hard to primary revenue models. We're seeing upfront royalties, where the creator takes their cut immediately at the initial mint. We've got bonding curves, where the price automatically ticks up with demand. We're seeing collector fees, meaning the buyer pays that extra percentage, not the seller. And finally, we have the 2024 meta, the 0.5% compromise. Platforms and traders have generally accepted a baseline 0.5% royalty. Sure, it's 100 times less than the 2021 peak, but hey, it keeps the system alive and functioning.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Beyond Art. How this is impacting music, tickets, games, and the future.
Because while the digital art market was fighting its civil war, this foundational tech of automated, trustless royalties started revolutionizing entirely different industries. Whether we're looking at music, tickets, or games, the mechanics are absolutely thriving. In music, platforms like Sound.xyz and Royal allow musicians to sell royalty shares of actual streaming revenue. Nas famously sold 50% of his streaming rights to 2 songs for $500,000, letting fans earn real passive USDC every month. In ticketing, massive venues and festivals like Coachella are using smart contracts to cap resale prices at 110%, which instantly invalidates tickets sold by scalpers and routes a 10% cut right back to the artist. And in gaming, developers for games like Parallel are taking a 5% royalty on all in-game item and skin trades. That mechanic alone recently generated $2.5 million to continuously fund their game development.
I'll leave you with this incredibly provocative thought directly from our source text. The next version pays creators first, not last. See, the future isn't about fighting traders for secondary scraps. It's about shifting to sustainable primary revenue shares, where creators are paid upfront at the mint. The technology to automate payments without middlemen, it isn't going anywhere. It's just growing up. So what industry do you think will be disrupted by smart contracts next?